Hello, and welcome back to the Believe You Can Paint channel. As some of you know, I don't like doing the talking head thing. Is it genuine if I read it?
Don't look at my eyes.
And prefer to just get to the paint job. And stick with me because I have a very special one for you this episode. But first, I wanted to take a moment to step in front of the camera and give a genuine thank you for watching this channel. When I recorded the footage we're about to watch, I planned on it being episode 20 and the end of the channel. I came to YouTube to inspire people to believe they can paint, to show people you don't have to be a professional or competitive painter to start painting. Heck, you don't even have to be good. And at 20 episodes, I felt like I had said what I came here to say, and that was enough. I was at peace with it. But a funny thing happened. After I finished recording the episode, I received a notification from YouTube that all of a sudden I had hit 100 subscribers. And before I could shoot a proper thank you video or edit episode 20, we hit 132 subscribers, nearly tripling where we were a month ago. We went from 16 hours viewed in almost 3 years to 312 hours viewed in just over a month. Now, I don't know why or how, and I don't know if it's something I did right or just random luck. What I do know is, for as long as we're growing and I'm able to put out content, that is what I'm going to do. So instead of an end to this channel, I'm making this episode as a thank you to my first 132 subscribers for inspiring me to believe that I can paint on YouTube. Just like with painting, I'm not a professional YouTube personality, and I don't aspire to be one, and I don't know what to do with my hands. But I do want to push myself to be the best I can and to put out the best content I can with the time and money set aside for this channel. So this episode will also mark the end of what I'm going to call Season 1. I'm already filming Season 2, and after a short break for the holidays, I hope to take everything I've learned about painting, about YouTube, producing videos, and myself to bring more consistent content more often. So once again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for stopping in and sharing your time with me. It made a difference. It really did. I hope you enjoy this episode. The new Season 2 opening I'm about to reveal for the first time. But also, please remember that I believe that you can paint, if only you try. Thanks, guys. Enjoy. Alright, that's enough reading and scripts. We're just going to go off the rails here and see what we can do. This is the Cthulhu mini from Cthulhu Wars. We're going to prime it in Chaos Black and then start Zenithal priming with our white ink. If you go over to my inks Zenithal and contrast video, you can see how I do this. So it's going to take a minute to get all highlighted, and I go layer by layer quite a bit. I'm going to do a lot of airbrushing on this miniature because one of my goals was to go back and paint a mini that I painted a long time ago, and my other goal was to improve on that paint job and show kind of as a marker where I've made it so far. So a little bit of history on this particular miniature. It's not the first thing I painted. It's the first great old one that I painted from the Cthulhu Wars box, and it's the first major miniature I painted, and it's the first thing that I painted that made me go, wow, why did I ever think I couldn't do this? And it's not because it was so good. It's because I just did it and I pulled it off, and I had a lot of people that really liked it and thought it was amazing, and that felt good. But I myself felt like I did a really good job. And so for me, this mini kind of marks the starting point of where I'm at now. It started me on that journey of, I believe I can paint, and I believe that other people can paint. And I want to inspire them to just step out of their comfort zone and try it and show that an inexperienced person can still paint miniatures well. So something I want to do in this video is kind of appreciate that journey that gets me to this miniature, because I do think it's one of the best paint jobs I've put on. Maybe not the most dynamic or anything, but I think it's just a really clean paint job that we achieve with this. And so I want to take a retrospective at some miniatures that got me here and some of the major milestones in my painting journey so far. So let's start with the original Cthulhu miniature. Okay, so this is the original Cthulhu mini that I did, and you can see he's just slathered in wash. When I first got started, contrast paints didn't exist yet, but I had this idea that I could dye a mini the color I wanted it to be, kind of like what the Army Painter dip system was, but I didn't have that, and so I used Citadel washes to dye the whole miniature. And then I came back with some dry brushing and some primitive highlighting, and then coated him some more with some more wash, because I just really didn't know how to get that contrast that I was looking for, but I knew I wanted it. And so, at the time it was cover him in wash, and a lot of people were saying, yeah, cover your minis in wash. And he came out just fine. I was perfectly happy with him, and happy to bring him to the table. Now, I call out the mistakes because I don't want to be disenchanted and say that this guy looks like he's great, right? Like from a professional painting standpoint, he doesn't. So I want to acknowledge that and not discredit those guys. But what I do want to say is when this guy was finished, and when he went up on Facebook, and when I took him to the game shop the first time, everyone was just super blown away by him. And looking back at it, I can see the mistakes, but I can still appreciate that he was painted, and that I did it, and that he was the first step in a major journey for me. So I just, I want to acknowledge that. All right, continuing on with our new paint job, we're doing some contrast paint here, and we're going with Plague Bearer flesh over the top of some Creed camo, and just driving those highs high, getting kind of a yellow tone. We're going for a very lit side on his right and an unlit side on his left, so keeping the left side drab, the right side very high, using the positioning of the model to give him some lighting contrast, and I think it so far it's going to great effect. So really, really cool position for him to be lit on that side to catch his head and his shoulders, and darken that side, because the left side in his own shadow. All right, the next miniature I want to talk about is Aboth. He was very pivotal in my painting journey, and with contrast paints and just getting started on that direction. When I painted him for the channel, the idea was I wanted to see what we could do with one coat of contrast, and seeing how the colors played together on this particular miniature and the level of contrast we got, it really sent me on that journey to discover what those paints might be capable of, and just how good we can do with simple paint jobs. So I love this one. He was really great. All right, so now we're coming in with some Guilliman flesh on the wings of our new Cthulhu. And I'm just going over the top of the Zenithal highlights and the Plague Bearer flesh that we put on the wings. And I'm just letting it blend kind of in a natural way. I mean, it's the nice thing about doing monsters is you can't really make them look wrong. And so, if you're doing for like a hyper-realistic paint job, you might want to get real concerned about the edges. But in the case of a monster, who says that his wings have to have a very defined edge? No one. And so that's what we're doing. All right, so while I use some ink on his eyes and some Volupus pink, I think also here, let's go ahead and take a look at another mini. All right, so this next miniature is Ubo Safla from the Chocho faction in Cthulhu Wars. And the paint job on this one, I just was really excited about it. Painting that eye, it's loosely based on another paint job that's out there where he's painted pink, and I wanted to go with that, but I wanted to go with the more gritty look that I've got on my Cthulhu Wars. And so I painted him up, and what really stood out to me was the dry brushing and the stones, and using the glazes with the dry brushing and some contrast with the dry brushing to really make those pop. I thought it was just pretty well executed, and I wanted to include it in this because it was a big confidence booster for me. Just sometimes painting a good miniature is a big deal for your self-esteem. All right, we're getting into the base here, and I wanted to go ahead and get kind of like a beach look, so I went with like a Agros Dunes Plague Bearer Flesh blend here to kind of tie it in to the piece, but give it like a sandy look at the bottom of the rocks. They're technically just rocks, but I thought I could pull it off, and I felt like I did. So pretty happy with that. And then just going in with Basileum Gray to gray up the stones, the rocks there. Alright, this next miniature is Haunter of the Dark from Cthulhu Wars. And he's significant because he's one of the first miniatures that I use the object source lighting style that I'm kind of getting into now, where we just splash paint where it should be and then dye it. So there's lots of ways to do OSL properly. This is the way that I do it, which is probably not proper, but it's an easy way to cast light without having to get hyper technical and lots of blends. And so this is just dyeing white paint to produce light instead of actually painting light. So he's a great miniature that shows off that style. Back on Cthulhu, we're going to be bringing in some really high yellows with a ink. So you could see it back there in the back. We're throwing this fluorescent yellow ink on just the highs and bringing those yellows even higher. So just more contrast, more highlights, and just being a little bit liberal with the ink to make sure that it saturates the Plague Bearer flesh underneath. Alright, the next miniature I want to take a close look at is the Servitor of the Outer Gods. I painted a few of these guys. I started off with a black and white scale for one of them, and I liked it, but then suddenly a vision hit me for these guys of what they could look like, and I painted my second one with this style here, and I'm not sure if this is the second one or the one I did on the channel. It kind of looks like the second one, a little less refined. Basically, I did an undercoat with this magenta color. It's actually Volupus Pink, my go-to, and then the top color, I think it was Aethermatic Blue. So I just sprayed from two directions, slightly moving the model to get the undertones and the high tones to make this color shift effect. And then just to bring it together, I put him on this star base and made those orange accents. And I think he was a really, really cool miniature for a really, really easy execution. So again, if you want to do like some space miniatures, he's a great one to use as an example. And there's a ton of guys out there that can paint that Starfield style with excellent execution. So, of course, if you're looking for something with greater effect, that's just the bare example of what you could do. You can go much further. Speaking of going much further with the Starfield execution, let's take a look at this guy next. This has got to be one of my favorite miniatures I've done. He's also a crowd favorite. I didn't do him for the channel. I did him for myself. When I saw this miniature, I loved it. This is Dire Azathoth from Cthulhu Wars. I wanted to be the first person in the US to have him painted. I don't know if I was. I would say I had to have been close to the first customer in US to have it painted. And when I got him done, he looked like absolute trash. I tried to use color shift paints from GW on him, and as I normally do, I cavemanned it up and didn't really look at how I was supposed to do it, and the result was bad. And so I come back through a little while later, and I decided to paint him all black and try again. And randomly, I just decided to do this Starfield pattern on him and use the airbrush to spatter paint and use some contrast paint to fill in some Andromedas or some galaxies or whatever they, nebulas, whatever they are. And man, I'm so proud of that miniature. I am so proud of him.
it was well above my level. But also, I gotta say, again, I know I always say this, but it wasn't that hard. I mean, I had to use the airbrush and use it to good effect, but it wasn't that hard to pull off. So again, if you want to do that, what I did with it was I put it on really high pressure and then flicked the airbrush needle in and out. So it would just spit paint and sputter paint, and it worked great. You can also use a toothbrush, which is how a lot of guys do it. So don't be scared of that, because it was, again, just contrast paint and some making a mess. All right, so getting down to the nitty gritty here on Cthulhu. Man, I'm loving him. We've airbrushed the base, done some aethermatic blue on the water, filling in the eyes now with some Iandan yellow over the top of the fluorescent ink. And so we've got some highs underneath, and just using that Iandan yellow to fill in some oranges. And then coming back with the brush finally. This is the first time the brush has hit the model, maybe just a bit on the water there, but really not been much brush action on this. But we're coming in with Lamenter's yellow and filling in those eyes to get them really to pop. And Lamenter's yellow, guys, if you're not using it, that is an excellent color to do some monster eyes. A super high yellow on that. It's also good for the centers of lanterns and that kind of thing if you want to play with some light. Now we're just coming in with some white to get some more detail into the paint, and a little more contrast paint on the rocks, just to make these kind of look like a dark moss or a lichen. I didn't want them to pull away from Cthulhu at all. I wanted them to be dark, and I wanted him to definitely steal the show. Man, there are so many minis I wanted to show on this, but I could not let the episode end without showing this guy. This is Cocodemon. He's technically from Planet Apocalypse. I have him for Cthulhu Wars. He's a cross-game miniature from Peterson. And I stole this idea from Chase Creates, so go check out Chase. His painting is amazing. His Planet Apocalypse stuff is amazing. And the concept for this is that these guys are coming out of the pages of a book and being burnt into reality. And I loved that idea. He's got a ton of his units painted up like that, and I just had to steal it. I didn't paint this one for an episode. I had no clue how it was going to turn out, and if I'd known it was going to be this good, I would have shown it. And I got to tell you guys a secret. This is almost all contrast paint. So lots of aggro stoons and skeleton horde on all the parchment. I did do a lot of black lining and a lot of pencil work. I actually used a pencil to draw in some of the parchment stuff and then sealed it in before I started doing color. So maybe I'll get to something like this in season 2. But I gotta tell you guys, go check out his stuff if you can find it. I don't think he has a YouTube, but you can find him on Facebook. So definitely go check that out. So just wrapping up here, guys, I gotta say thank you again for your support. Thank you to my first 132 subscribers. We're actually at 138 as I'm filming the last 2 minutes of this, probably to go up again. So that's amazing. Thank you so much. If you can't tell, I've got a lot more to offer as far as quality, and I'm going to keep pushing myself to figure out how to get better quality and still be easy, and showing you guys that. I'm also going to be bringing you some special episodes where I kind of step out of the box of just doing what's easy for me and push myself, and see what we can come up with. And I'm also getting some new models that are 3D printed. Never done that before, so we're going to try those out. I have partnered with some friends to bring me some models, some specific ones that I want to target. And then we also have another 300 miniatures or so on their way from Peterson Games that we're just waiting to get in from China, so that's exciting. And I also am going to get into Marvel United and some other things in the future. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for enjoying this wonderful Cthulhu mini and revisiting the past in this episode. I hope that it inspires you to go and try to paint. I know that you can do it, and I know that you'll love it if you just give it a try. So put your fears aside and please believe you can paint.